Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 172 of Flesh and Pod. My name's Logan. I'm on location in sunny Arizona, which is how you can tell by this ghostly lighting that I sort of have, I guess. And with me, as always, is Darick, recently suspended from duty. Darick Oswald.
Here, I'll. That's not super ghostly, but
no,
I'll try to
really
try to cosplay like I'm in a hotel.
That's fair. I'm not
Or
in a hotel,
Airbnb.
actually. I'm in a house. I'm in my buddy's parents' house.
Oh, I thought you guys did like the vacation rental thing usually.
No. We have one of my friends from high school's parents snowbird here.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, they have a 3-bedroom house, and so here we are. And I've been enjoying my time in the sun, and also just it's nice. It's the most relaxed I think I am at any point in time in a year by miles. I drink way too much when I'm here, but I also drink way too much when I'm not here. So what's the difference? So it's nice and relaxing, and I've only got another full day here and then fly back on Tuesday. But for some reason, we sacrifice everything for you, our listeners, and that includes taking a break from my vacation to make sure that we give you the show. So that's our show for this week.
See you next week. Bye.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no. We're not doing that.
Sorry, when you said that's our show for this week, I was like, oh, okay.
Let's get it out. No, I'm not going to do that. But I did nothing in Flesh and Blood. I have been instead attending baseball games and hanging out in the sunlight. Although I will say at the game today, we were at Scottsdale Stadium, so that's where the Giants play, and it was Oakland and the Giants. And like the row over for me, some guy just goes into cardiac arrest, and it was just like, oh, okay. And as people are kind of scrambling and they're trying to get somebody, like, yeah, they're yelling medic, but it's not very loud, and that's where I used every ounce of. I channeled every time that I've called for a judge in a tournament to yell for a medic, and they noticed immediately. It was the quickest. They're like
that tracks.
Snapping. Yeah, right. Because if I need to be loud, I can be loud. Not hard for me, turns out. But so far, we've been to 4 games. We did get rained out one day, which again, really weird in Arizona sometimes. But when it rains, kind of what we would consider a little bit. In the Midwest, it is very much so. It pools here. It becomes more of an issue because they just don't have the infrastructure for it. It doesn't rain that much,
right?
So, and that makes sense. And otherwise, it's been a wonderful vacation. It is basically. So I have had a home cooked meal most nights, including tonight, that I didn't have to prepare. And there's a dog here for me to hang out with, and I wake up every morning to a fresh pot of coffee and a sunrise over the desert mountains. It's basically perfect. I mean,
you had me a dog.
Yeah, it's a Brock Francais, and Sammy is wonderful. If I opened the door to this room right now, I guarantee we would have some Sammy time. He would be in a heartbeat. But so that's been my weekend, and I haven't touched Flesh and Blood. I haven't really looked at Flesh and Blood because I'm doing this. I did accept a spot on a team for Battle Hard in Milwaukee, and then promptly realized that I had plans in my hometown on Friday morning before the Battle hardened. So I have to do the thing in my hometown, drive back to Des Moines, drop off my wife, then drive to like Madison or Milwaukee. So it's like 7.5, 8 hours of driving that day because I wasn't thinking.
Why would you do that?
I should be better at that.
That sounds awful, sir.
It's not that bad. I'm pretty used to it at this point in time. And honestly, I wanted to get the reps in ahead of the Pro Tour because things are changing a lot. And it was evidenced by calling Kobe. Like we have the Aurora deck out in the wild now. So we have kind of the full power of Aurora, and it showed a little bit. It was the most popular deck of the day, and there were 4 copies in the top 8, alongside a Zen, and the winner, a Florian.
Yeah,
Which,
we started to talk before you hit the record button, and I am more shocked that we had 4 Auroras than I am that Florian won.
yeah, you would think that it would be hard targeted,
Right.
and
That's why I was more shocked, just because we just were looking at the one event where Aurora did very well. We knew that the Armory deck was coming, and so I just was expecting a bit of like a rubber band effect. But maybe everyone else maybe the other thing happened, because it's basically like 2 things happen whenever you have, 4 or 5 of the same hero show up in a top 8. Either everyone targets it or everyone goes, oh, that looks fun. And there is a possibility, and I will say that with the Armory deck coming out and us getting the quote unquote powered up version, that people were like, hey, let's play that. But I'm still surprised at the 4.
yeah, I'm surprised the 4. I'm surprised none of the. I'm surprised that there wasn't a Jarl involved, because I know a lot of people have been kind of steering into that, and to kind of, because frostbites are hard for Syndra and Aurora to deal with, and obviously there's no Syndras in this top 8. There's a Zen instead, which can navigate some of those other matchups better. It isn't terrible into Aurora by any stretch. I mean, it's still very good. Aurora doesn't block. You have your big turns. You're usually getting in for a ton of damage, and you can then kind of wait and do it again. But
Right.
yeah, I was just kind of surprised to not see that, to not see an Enigma, maybe, like none of that, and instead 4 Auroras. And I was just like, okay, is that?
Was it? I
And I
thought there
was,
was one Enigma.
is there an Enigma in there? I thought it was a new.
Let me pull it
Hold
back
please.
up. Yeah, we had the one Enigma, one new, one Zen, one Florian, 4 Aurora.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, there's the one Enigma. That's right. Vespa. Yeah, Vespa's playing. Duh.
Yeah.
So yeah, there
And
was
so
one
like
Enigma.
Enigma made sense, new made sense, Zen made sense. Like I'm with you on, like, what I would have expected was maybe 2 or 3 Auroras and then like a Syndra in the place.
Yeah.
But I
No
again,
Prism either.
No Prism. I'm still, again, personally just not surprised that Florian ended up winning, though, because it's weird. It's almost like I said a while ago, like, hey, I think that this hero is really good and that it's not like getting the love. And once Viserai goes away, it'll take a little bit of time, but folks will catch up.
They caught up.
Because, like, let's be honest here, right? It's called Flesh and Runeblade. If you're new and you don't understand, Runeblades are almost always, there's always a Runeblade that's good, and it just so happens that I'm of the opinion, even when Viserai was still CC legal, that we had like 3 that were playable, because I still think Florian was playable then as well.
There's 5 Runeblades in the top 8. You know.
Yeah, 5 Runeblades in the top 8. Listen, I stand by that. I think Florian is very good. Sure. I think that Florian can definitely get the job done. I don't necessarily think that Florian is the, best deck, or maybe even like not even the most consistent. But again, when you were looking for like what is potentially going to fill that Viserai slot once he hits LL, I still think that Florian is the most likely and can be scary at times. So I'm kind of curious to see what the fallout of this is, whether or not people just see, okay, it was a bunch of Auroras, let's keep jamming that, or if people actually try the other Runeblade.
I think that the Pro Tour will see Aurora still get targeted really hard. I think that makes sense. And the best ways to do that may be changing. But we already know that Prism's matchup into it is very good. We know that Guardian can do a lot of damage if they're disruptive. Florian is disruptive without on hits, which is, kind of breaks the mold a little bit with Plowinner and Felling. And so it makes it a bit harder to navigate, which was kind of what made Jarl, part of what made Jarl appealing at one point in time, was he was disruptive without on hits. You can make frostbites, you could do this, you could do that without having to actually physically, have an on hit on it. Whereas, your assassins all have on hits, which outside of Codex, the Codex will not talk about that. That's not necessary. And so we're in this. I think we're in a. If we had one more, is there one more major event before? Because there's a battle hardened in Dublin. Is there? I don't think there's another calling.
I don't think there's another calling either.
Hold please. We have coming up. No, we do have another calling next weekend in Sao Paulo. That's right. There's a calling in South America. And
oh yeah, it's just yeah, okay. My problem was I, for whatever reason, like my brain is trained to think that when I look at something, because of like the way articles are normally published, I think of like whatever's top left is most recent. So I just scrolled down and I saw calling Kobe, and above it I saw skirmish season. So I didn't even think to look to the right, but yeah, calling Sao Paulo. Okay.
Yep.
And that one's going to be a banger, because I've been saying for a long time,
South America's so good.
That is just a community that loves card games. And so
they absolutely love Flesh and Blood. Like they have the biggest road to nationals on record, if I remember right. That was in South America. There was like 128 person road to nats.
Yeah.
And but so we, as much as I thought that maybe we were going to see a settling of the metagame after last week coming into Kobe, and it'd look a little more settled and the picture is clear, I don't think the picture got clearer. I honestly think that if anything, it got turned into more of a guessing game. And we'll see. I know that there's probably still some things that people aren't willing to bring out into the light right now, and that makes sense. I know that there's still a lot of people working on Dash. There's still a lot of people working on Verdance. And we didn't see any of those represented. A lot of people still think Prism is way up there, but there's a lot of people that have already pivoted towards Jarl as a way to beat both Prism and the aggro decks. And so I think we're kind of in the middle of that right now, and that's it's interesting. But in my mind, it's a it's going to be weird. I think I think it's going to be weird until Pro Tour London, personally.
Yeah, I think that's maybe fair. I don't know. I forgot that there was Sao Paulo. So I am really looking forward to this, because there is a chance that some interesting things could arise from it, and in doing so, it will happen like just before Pro Tour London, right? And so I am very interested in what the story is going to be emerging from that event, and whether or not it changes the outlook or the field for London. Because if something crazy new or whatever does pop up, or if the spread is wildly different, right? Like, I don't expect this to be the case, but let's just say hypothetically, what if we go from that 5 or whatever Auroras it was, and then now 4 for this one, and then we go to Sao Paulo and there's 0 that make the top 8, just hypothetically. Like, what does that do if you're trying to plan for the Pro Tour? But just specifically, because that is again a region that is chock full of some really good card gamers. If something new or kind of wild emerges, I'm very curious to see what will happen as a result of that. So
Yeah, especially since we don't. I mean, this is the first calling in South America,
right?
And
we don't even have like regional bias to say like,
no.
Oh, we'll expect some dashes or whatever like we used to. Like this is, and that's why I'm saying like this is kind of so wide open because we don't know what to expect, and so it
could be Oops Volcano. We don't know.
Yeah, we could have something totally wild, and that's why I'm saying like, so let's just say we do get an Oops Volcano or again just something that we are not necessarily thinking of as the norm. We have such a short time between that event and then the Pro Tour. And then there's also, again, that regional thing where we have no historical context, right? So like if you're a good player and you look at whatever the results are of this upcoming event, do you say like, oh, they're on to something? Or do you say like, well, maybe that was a fluke, right? Like,
I don't think you can ever discount it. Not if you've ever interacted with South American players in any card game whatsoever.
Well, that's where you're wrong, sir, because you can discount anything if you're just willing to not care.
Right. If you're willing to put your head in the sand, you can do that.
Right.
But it's a lot like even back in the day when this show was still in its pseudo infancy, and the conversation was around Pro Tour 1, and I remember saying I think it's somebody from Europe that wins it, and my reasoning was most of organized play had been very US centric, and we hadn't got really an exposure into some of these euros, like the euro markets and stuff like that. That we just those names we didn't know those names yet.
Right.
But knowing what I know coming from Magic, and a lot of the European players being incredible, it was like I think somebody from Europe wins this, and I thought specifically Poland at the time, but at the end of the day, it was I think Poland, but whatever that looks like, I still think it's somebody from Europe that wins it, and it turns out it was.
Yeah.
So
gamer's gonna game.
That's right, and I think that's what you're going to look at with this, right? With Battle Hard and Sao Paulo is there's no shortage of incredible card players in every region of the world, but it is hard to find a region more hungry for game than South America right now. So they're going to bring everything, and we'll see what comes out of it. It could be something that looks like I said, Oops Volcano. You don't get a lot of information from Oops Volcanoes outside of Prepare for Kano. But it also could be something interesting. It could be something that we kind of discounted coming in. So we'll see. Yeah.
I cannot wait. Like, how hype would it be? Hear me out, okay? Top 8.
Okay.
Top 8. Here we go. We got an Olympia.
No, we're done.
Two Arachne Huntsmans.
No, we're super done.
A Betsy.
Nope.
A Riptide.
Sure. Keep going.
A Rhinar.
Sure.
A Dorinthia.
Okay.
And then to cap it all off. No, I wasn't going to say Katsu, but that's a good. I was going to say a Vincent.
Well, no,
because you got to have a Rune Blade. You got to have a Rune Blade. Like that's a requirement.
Sure. That is actually in
Flesh
the
and Rune
Blades.
Blades.
It is Flesh and Rune Blades.
But like, how banger of a top 8 would that be?
From a certain point of view. But no, that'll be fun to talk about next week. When I'm back in the lab, I'm actually be home. I think, maybe allegedly. It depends. I am flying Southwest, and they do fly Boeings, so I could just get Boeinged.
You could just get FAA'd. You could get deported.
They may have a harder time with that one.
You're assuming they follow laws, sir. Have you not been paying attention?
I forgot. I'm sorry. They'll just pull up our Discord and be like, "Is this you?" Like, no, that's my podcast partner, Darick. Is this you? Nope. My screen name is I'm Jorman. IMJORMAN. Is this you? Well, shit. Okay, never mind. I'm getting fucking deported. But I mean, I am in Arizona. Did you ready up a hot take? Because I readied up. I mean, I had one more hot take left over.
My hot take was my proposed top 8 for Sao Paulo.
That wasn't much of a proposal. That was a wish list.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, not maybe. That was definitely a wish list. Did you play your Armory this week? I know you intended to.
All right, so I did not. You never asked me what I did in Flesh and Blood. So this was supposed to be the first week where Doa and I were going to be recording on Tuesday. Unfortunately, he had a sick kiddo, so we could not do it on Tuesday as planned. So again, from here on out, we're supposed to be full steam ahead on Tuesdays going forward. But, you know, adulting is going to adult sometimes. It happens.
Yeah, no, I get it. And
Stark is also very excited, though, because I told him that I had moved my night. And so he even, all on his own today, he was like, hey, Dad, can we play Flesh and Blood today? And I was like, you know what? Yes, we can.
I have nothing better to do.
Listen, it's not an armory, but I think that counts, right? I played some with my son.
What's more wholesome than that? Counts. No, nothing. That 1,000% counts. The one leftover hot take I had, and I don't know how hot of a take it is, but was that Flesh and Blood needs to have travel awards. So for those that are not in the know necessarily, back in the halcyon days of MTG, where things were really well handled and
yeah, we're talking. Sorry, I was looking at the plaque on my wall, so it would have been like circa 98, 99.
Actually 99 or 2000 until 2013 was really the best times.
Right.
Back in the old PTQ system. So Magic now, you have to. I couldn't even tell you how their competitive structure works. It makes no sense. But they used to be exactly like Flesh and Blood structure. You wonder where it came from. That's where. So, but one of the things that existed, one of the things that was good, is that when you won a tournament like a Pro Tour or ProQuest or what you'll be called a Pro Tour qualifier, you wound up, instead of getting a gold foil, or any kind of prize card, you wound up getting your travel paid for to the event you qualified for. So a lot of times, it had the inverse effect of what you see now. So there's a lot of people I know. We have qualifying season for Pro Tour Singapore coming up, and people are just like not planning on playing because the travel to Singapore is ludicrously expensive from a lot of places in the country.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to get to this part because I was going to say this is why it's not done. Two things have happened since then, and this is also why I wanted to make sure I had like my timing right. And I knew it was about a year or two after when I got this silly plaque that's on my wall, so that's why I always use it to check. But two things have happened since that player reward structure was implemented. The first thing that's happened is that capitalism caused the cost of travel to skyrocket, right? Like, listen, I'm not saying flights were cheap back then. I'm simply saying that it was still like a whole lot more. Like, I remember a time in my life where you could get like a one-way flight from, Detroit to Orlando for like $50, right? Like, that was a thing that had happened in my life.
Yeah.
Also, and here's the second thing that happened since then. One fine Tuesday morning, a plane crashed into a tower, and then another plane crashed into a tower. And so since then, it also means that the travel for Pro Tours, when you start talking about international stuff, doesn't mean that you can just cover like the travel anymore, because there's also extra hoops. And I'm saying that obviously I'm leading in with a joke, but my non-joke, like my serious answer is that I do also wonder, even if they're not going to say it publicly, how many people are not interested in potentially traveling because of the current political climate. Like, I myself as an American, who has traveled a bunch outside of the country, would be lying if I said like I felt like I could do it without a problem right now, right?
Right.
I feel like I'm going to get more questions coming back. I feel like there might be questions when I land, and rightfully so. I don't blame any country for not trusting Americans right now, but that very well could be a thing. We've already seen some countries, and again, this is your reminder if you're listening and you're going to go to London, because they're one of them. There's a lot of countries that you still have to fill out like visa applications now when you didn't have to in the past. So if you're going to London,
you need an ETA, which is a travel authorization.
Correct. You have to sign up online, and then there's also a small fee,
like
right?
$12.
Yeah, it's small fee, but you still have to go through the process, right? So my point is that things that used to be significantly easier are just not. They haven't been for a while. They're certainly worse now. And so when you factor those things in, like, don't get me wrong, I would love to see travel paid for, but when you factor those things in, and then you also remember that
Hasbro,
I was going to say that LSS is a much smaller corporation in a country that is like on the other side of the world, and they're already dealing with logistics for running the events and shipping their products and whatever. That I think that as a player, I'm willing to give them some grace on the not wanting to do the thing. Look, if they announced they were doing it, I'm not going to be mad at it, and I would certainly like it. But this is one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I know why they don't.
I do worry a bit. Now that we're talking about travel, I do worry a bit that when it comes to Worlds in the U.S., that
has
might
crossed my mind.
That might be something where LSS, looks at the climate and says we can't do it, and moves it to Toronto or just somewhere in North America that isn't the United States because of US's current political climate and everything else. And it's crossed my mind, and I think it's crossed a lot of people's minds. But hopefully that's not, that isn't the case. But it doesn't look like it's getting much better anytime soon. So I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's something they're looking at. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Granted, there are probably contracts already signed and everything else, but if you're talking about player safety, if you're talking about the detainment of people that are coming here from other countries to play your game, like, can't do it.
Well, I mean, there's all of those things, but like the other thing that I keep thinking about is honestly, like, is there going to be an issue when you factor in like whether or not people will think it's worth it? Right.
Sure.
Let's say, like, theoretically, we could still run Worlds and it could go off without a hitch. Not a single person could have a problem, but just the shadow looming over potential problems might be enough to cause, 10, 50, 100, whatever people to just not go. Right. It's hard to measure that kind of impact. But again, I think we would have to assume that there would be people not looking to come here. And again, like, I get it.
No, I do. And it sucks. Right. And but I don't blame them for, if they decide to rethink this. I mean, there'll be a lot of people who would just be like, this would have been fine. I can't believe you did this or whatever. And that's exactly how they sound. And, but I think that any reasonable person would look at it and go, yeah, I get it. I really do. So we'll see. But I hope that they're able to feel confident by that time that they'll be able to do the event as planned. Like, that's my only thing. This is going to be a pretty short episode. I don't have a whole lot else news-wise because, again, I have not been kind of tuned in or tapped into the flesh and blood of it all. But one of the things I did forget to say last week. It's amusing when something is wrong and people don't know it. So when we had the Azalea player who picked up the Armory deck playing last week, and he played a Bloodroot Pox against me and named it and unironically said Bloodroot Pox, and I just burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? That's what it says, right?" And I'm like, yes, it does.
I mean, it does say that. You're not wrong.
Supposed to. And yeah, I'm gonna explain it, but I that just made me chuckle. But we do have our listener questions though, so we probably just kind of pop into those almost immediately.
I mean, I was gonna say we had a decent amount.
Yeah, we might as well just hop on in, right? Like,
because if I remember right, we're going all the way back to Hammer Bro. If I remember right.
We are going all the way back to
Salty Sea Cat. Actually.
Oh yeah, Salty Sea Cat. Sorry, yeah. The first one is from Salty Sea Cat. The question is, do you think LSS's lore is now like Game of Thrones, where it's outpacing the books with the constant draftable sets? I wish they'd bring back supplemental sets. I already discussed the supplemental set thing from my point of view. We've been there and done that part, but
from I kind of feel like a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view, I feel like it kind of is. And I know they've pseudo recently hired a lore team, like an actual team to work on the story specifically, versus them having a general idea and just putting out pieces when they can. So we should see more consistent lore articles or lore or stories come out. But yeah, we have a bunch of hanging threads of plots. With no real promise of when they're getting tied together, which is about as Game of Thrones as it gets. Well, as Song of Ice and Fire as it gets. Like, let's be fair here. We're talking about the books, which are a Song of Ice and Fire, versus the show, which is Game of Thrones. But we don't know if Song of Ice and Fire has a bad ending because he hasn't finished it. We do know that the show that it was based on did not have good last seasons. That's
I mean, I guess that's a thing we know.
What do you mean you guess?
I don't know. I personally loved that really big battle that was so black I couldn't see it.
You would.
Mm-hmm.
You would. Because it's so miserable to watch, you would have looped back like Nuclear Gandhi into enjoying it.
Nuclear Gandhi is my spirit. Like,
I wonder how many people listening to this know what Nuclear Gandhi is.
I bet all
it's
of them.
It's not zero.
No, it's -1.
Okay, so if there's anybody that needs that clarified, please post a listener question that says, what is Nuclear Gandhi, so that we can then explain it on the next episode. But you're such a piece of shit. But okay, fine.
Yeah. Then after that, we have the Stoop Kid.
Yeah, I think that this is the hardest question that either of us has ever fielded. One's a question for me that is, what's wrong with Charmer? And the second one is a question for Charmer, what's wrong with Logan? Now, in the interest of fairness,
mm-hmm.
I think we need to find an arbitrary method to see who has to answer this question first.
Do we?
No, we really don't. I'll answer it first. Charmer lacks the deserved confidence that he should have in himself to do the things that he knows he's capable of. That's what I say is what's wrong with Charmer.
I think that you just have really bad taste.
I don't
Exhibit A, your taste in friends.
Okay, well, that has bit me in the ass a couple of times.
You choose willingly every week without break.
Without breaks. Yeah, I do. I really do.
So,
yeah, I do. I do know. Yeah, maybe you're onto something there. And I think that both of us would agree about each other that we probably could be much better about sort of promoting ourselves, about the confidence to just kind of, put ourselves more out there. I mean, we honestly, I have 172 weeks of putting myself out there, right? But I don't do enough, to actually further that on my own. I don't seek out more gratification or whatever, however you want to put it. And a lot of people have told me that I should, that that we would be much bigger, we would be much more popular, we would have more listens, we would have this and that and the other thing if we did. And they're probably right. But I also just don't give a shit. And that's probably the problem.
It's like the old, the people who should like really be in leadership are probably the ones who don't want to do it, sort of thing. And it's kind of the same thing where it's like, the people who end up being popular or famous are usually the ones that like made the effort to do so, not necessarily, something else.
And, honestly, it's, I think that if you were to kind of on a loyalty scale measure out fan bases for different shows or listeners of favorite shows, I would take ours against anybody's. The Fappers are legion, and they are undefeated.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong about that.
So, but in all honesty, what's the things that are wrong with us are, let me think here. Darick's, criminal
Breathing.
depression.
Yeah, I know.
See, there it is. There's the one. We did it. We just right there.
I hadn't spoke to my therapist in like a month, and so then when I talked to him on Friday, right, like I was like, "Let me tell you about the month I've had."
Oh, Jesus! They quit their job on the spot.
Well, I mean, he hadn't heard about foster kids or the suspension or like a whole bunch of stuff. So like, I was like, so that's what I've been up to. And he was just like, huh,
fuck.
Okay. Sure.
And so Darick, what is mine? Like, what is my Achilles heel in your opinion?
I told you have bad taste.
Okay. Fine. Sure. If I was going to do it self-reflectively, I wouldn't say that.
I would also argue that you are far too easily manipulated.
That's a fun one.
Yeah. Because I bet if I wanted to, I could get you to do whatever I wanted if I just guised it under like making it seem altruistic or committing to the bit or whatever. Like I know your buttons, and they're not even like hard to find.
No, they're not. I mean,
they're easier to find than, the Gulf of America.
There's one of my buttons. But yeah, when you talk about like the altruism side of it, it's, I don't think that I do anything out of a sense of altruism. I think altruism is
know
false.
what you think. I just also know what works. What you think and what works are two different things, sir.
All right, fine.
You don't do it because you don't even believe altruism is real, and I get that. However, if I give you any sort of task and then I put it under the like, hey, this is like really helping some folks out, it's doing the right thing, you'll be like, yeah, sure, I'm in.
Okay. Yes, I would. Yes.
Okay. Well, see, there you go.
I don't see it as a bad thing.
I didn't say it was a bad thing either. You said Achilles heel. I'm just saying it's a weakness. Look, Western civilization's greatest sin is empathy. Haven't you heard, sir? Shit. Like, I'm just helping you to understand this.
You're just trying to sink me into the level of ennui that I would be pre-vacation.
Okay. Let's take the depression stuff out of it, right? Let's just say it's you and me at the store, and I say, hey, Logan, does that chair kind of look like a cuck chair? You're going to buy that chair.
I mean, it does depend. Because there are qualities to a cuck chair.
Listen, the fact that you said it depends already tells me I'm right, because the answer was just no, I won't. Like, it's that easy. It's just, no, I wouldn't. But you didn't even go there. You were like, well,
if it's the right price for a high quality cuck chair, then you pay the price for the high quality cuck chair.
Yeah, and this is my point.
Maybe there's a little too much fuck it we ball in what I do. Maybe that's true. But which is exactly why I'm a teammate for somebody in Battleheart of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Oops. You're welcome, Brandon. I'll be prepared though. Don't worry about that part.
Oh wait, is it for Brandon? Never mind.
It is.
Like couldn't ask for a better teammate. So
no, absolutely not.
If there wasn't a lake in the way, I would drive. I somehow I would have to check and do the math, but I feel like it's probably a longer drive for me than it is for you because of the damn lake.
Yeah, I actually think so, because I think it's 7. I think it is like 7 hours for you, or like 5.5, and it's right at 5 for me. I think. Well, Madison is supposed to be 5, but I usually make Madison faster than that. So
you said it's Milwaukee,
close,
right?
As the crow flies, you are way closer.
Oh yeah, like straight line, 100%. I am way closer. But
right.
If I just put in just random Milwaukee, actually it's less than I thought. Although it might be taken in like the fact that it's 11 at night, so it might be also like current traffic. Right now it's saying 5 hours and 15 minutes from my house to just Milwaukee.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I thought it would be more. Still does a big old loop around the lake, though.
Sure. I mean, there is a giant body of water there. And as much as you want to drive your car into it, that doesn't get you to Milwaukee.
Yeah. No, it gets me to Mill Swimmy.
I didn't even... That one's not my fault. That is not on me.
That one's not your fault. Not even a little bit.
That was awful.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was horrible.
Like, imagine if somebody like willingly was doing a podcast with somebody who made jokes like that.
Oh, you piece of shit. All right. Going to the next question. It's a longie, so deep breaths. This one is from HammerBro82. This is an unusual topic, so feel free to ignore. When do we ignore anything? One of our LGS owners just came back from GAMA, which is a board gaming convention gaming convention, I should say, for game stores and game creators specifically. Like, so for gaming companies and stores specifically. They've been having distribution issues with many of their games, and they were basically told by several suppliers that it was an allocation issue. It seems we're having similar distribution issues with Flesh and Blood. Several local stores are having trouble keeping on the shelves and ordering reasonable supply. The one store manager is the doom and gloom type and is claiming that the allocation control by Bandai, WotC, and other companies is going to put the LGSs out of business. I like that Walmart doesn't carry Fab products, you and me both, and the game is growing, it seems. And a little scarcity is a good thing. What is a good balance between being able to buy cards at the dollar store, Pokemon, and stores not being able to stock the game? Do we think LXS has fixed their distribution issues, and should they increase print runs? Okay. So let's take this for what the question really is, which is, what is a good balance between being able to buy cards at the dollar store and stores not being able to stock the game? Okay. So, and also we know LSS has told us that the distribution issue should be fixed. So let's ignore that part, right? Although with the U.S. being the U.S., you never know.
Also, let's just pause real quick and say current distribution issues.
Right.
Because there's one thing, if you have been with Flesh and Blood for a bit, like Logan and I, and we haven't even necessarily been here since like the beginning, but you have to remember, game launched essentially right when COVID started. Like, I can't remember a time when this game didn't have distribution issues. Like, even when they started to get things like correct, then some boat turned sideways in a canal once and it delayed everything by weeks. And then we, and then we had like a bridge collapse in Boston or whatever. And it's just like a nonstop thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, they might have fixed whatever is the current issue, but there will be more.
Oh, no, there will be. Because that's just the nature of distribution, especially nowadays, right? It hasn't gotten better in that regard, like, at all. So, I don't know. But I guess where I'm going with that is the balance. The balance is LGSs should be able to get whatever they need, and whether that's they need 75 or 80 cases, or if they need,
7
or 5 boxes, they should be able to get those types of things and get the things they need. That's the balance, right? And it should be LGSs. Like, things should be just centered around making sure the LGSs are supplied. If that's increasing print runs, that's a good question. I think it's a tightrope you have to walk. You don't want to ramp up too hard, obviously. But you also don't want to, like, again, best ways to put this is hard. You also don't want to end up in a spot where you have a short, like, you didn't do enough. You didn't go far enough. You didn't push hard enough. Because if you do, like, up your print runs and it's still not enough, people are going to think you're going to accuse you of being out of touch or whatever, whatever bullshit it is. But if you ramp them up to like Monarch levels or whatever, and the product sits around forever, and people see the game as a game that is decaying, that's rotting, that it's not moving, and threading that needle is hard. So while I don't want to see Flesh and Blood in Walmarts, I don't want to see Flesh and Blood on Amazon, I do want to see it grow, and I think that the best partner to do so is definitely LGSs. But we'll see. We'll see what the future has to hold.
Yeah, I think my hot take would be, I think your goal as a business is that you want to sell out, but somewhere between year 1 and year 2. Because to me, that's your sweet spot where your print run is. You've printed enough that you didn't sell out like day 1. It lasted a bit. It stayed on some shelves, and then it slowly trickled out. But you didn't overprint so much that there's just like forever stuff like loose in circulation.
Right.
And the reason for that is, like, from the business standpoint, you don't want to spend too much printing anyway, because then that's also just like additional overhead costs, right? So from a business standpoint, I think you should want to aim to sell out. But you should have like a target date from your release date or at least a window anyway, where you would expect to sell out that is acceptable.
Yeah, I concur.
You don't want to sell out, within the first month, but you don't want to like never sell out either.
Right. And it's, again, we are talking about threading needles, we are talking about things that are generically hard to do. But
yeah, I say it all the time. If card games were easy, we'd have a whole lot more that were successful.
Right.
Believe me. Digital card games, physical card games, it doesn't matter. The number that have been made versus the number that have been successful or lasted is just like so far apart, it's not even funny. If card games were easy, everyone likes to play, armchair quarterback and whatever. And, I've been playing Magic for 30 years and this, that, whatever. Listen, That's fine. You can play a game, you can know a game, but when it comes to the business side, when it comes to all of that, if it was easy, we'd have a lot more like successful ones, and there'd be a lot more companies doing it. It's hard. So
yeah,
bravo to anyone who makes it work.
And remember, we are talking about this game because it is successful. So there you go. Next question is from Charmer's favorite supporter, Goat Warrior Cultist.
I'm
LSS
a
released heroes
sucker for goats and cultists. If he was a goat assassin cultist, even better. But I'll give it a pass.
I think they know exactly what they are, and that's a Goat Warrior Cultist. But LSS released heroes like Betsy and Olympia that, insofar as I can tell, were not intended for CC in any meaningful way. Okay. And from there forward, sets have had full hosts of meaningful characters, I believe. Do you think the design of heroes basically just for limited and all that forgotten is all right, or should be avoided? Oof.
Let me call back to like 30 seconds ago. If making games was easy, everyone would do it. Like, yeah, they would love for all of them to be viable and impactful and whatever. I don't think that they personally made Olympia, and I don't think that they made Betsy strictly for limited and to not be CC viable. I do think that they are very aware that they are in a weaker state and were released as such. But I also think you have to remember the timing of Heavy Hitters specifically.
Yeah.
Heavy Hitters was our first set that was supposed to be the start of powering down. And I know that that is going to leave a sour taste in some folks' mouth, because then we got Part the Mistveil, which was, again, the opposite of where they were going. But at the time, they were very public and open about like, hey, the Aria heroes were running rampant and they were kind of drowning out everything else. And so Heavy Hitters were supposed to almost be like a back to basics type set. And even with those heroes that are kind of back to basics, I think that the thought process was we would still rather print these underpowered and then slowly tune them up, as opposed to print them overpowered and continue the trend that had been happening prior. And so I think that they are just a product of their time in Flesh and Blood's history, as well as a product of, again, being part of a set that was specifically designed to be a bit more basic in nature.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep getting support. And I don't think that they were intended to just not, be viable in CC or to be an afterthought, but it's just one of those things where like card games is hard, and everything prior to that had seemed really powerful. And so that was a time when they were, swinging the pendulum in the other direction. It happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to remember that design happens in time cycles, and these are usually fairly hard deadlines. Like, they need to submit these to the printer, and if they miss those deadlines, the set is late. The product doesn't necessarily arrive in time. And so sometimes, especially when you're trying to tune these heroes and these things like that, some feel like they're undercooked. And sometimes it's in vastly different ways. So if you think like, you do think of things like Betsy and Olympia, but that also applies to Zen as well, where last year they touched, didn't necessarily get to tune it as hard as they would want to, let it out the door the way it was, and shit, it happens. So, and to Darick's point that he's made 1,000 times, it feels like this episode, making games is hard. Shit ain't easy. So, a little bit of, we would all do well to have a little bit of extra grace when we come to thinking about these things, and not just shitting on them for having, misses. Misses are going to happen. No one is perfect. But if we do let things breathe and give it time, these heroes will be better. Azalea took forever to get one living legend point. And they took some time, gave some tools. Some of them people wish didn't exist, thinking of Codex of Frailty, And she became, he climbed the board a little bit. But sometimes it's going to take time. That's all. Last question, back from HammerBro82. On the way to our skirmish, discussing how would you build sexy KO? And which character is a male stripper? I don't think that's so much as a question as a statement, but which character? I mean, Bravo's the male stripper, right? Bravo and Victor? No?
Bravo
and Olympia.
Olympia.
Because he does it for the money. The goal's the payoff.
And he loves to spend his money to go back to the place to get more outfits, right? So like he... He is the Seth Rollins of Flesh and Blood, where he has to come out with a new outfit every time.
Sure.
And then
people sing his song.
Yeah. Take it off.
I guess. All right. I mean,
burn it down.
It's definitely Bravo, but
yeah, because he's the star of the show.
Yeah, and he's going the full Monty the whole time. I mean, I'm surprised they ever draw him with clothes on. To be fair, it just seems like you wouldn't. Like, why bother? He's just going to hang dong like Thunder Gun no matter what.
You're going to make me want to rewatch that show.
Sunny? You should rewatch It's All Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That show's great. I am a big fan.
Because it's Dolph Lundgren, man.
Right. But there's been a lot of social media about like giving Caitlin Olsen her flowers for being like probably one of the most insanely gifted physical comedians we've had in recent memory, and they're just showing clips from Sunny of Caitlin Olsen doing the weirdest shit. And
well, I mean, to be fair though, like it's easy to be a physical comedian when you're a bird, you know?
Big dumb bird with these giant hands. But yeah, that's facts. All right, well, that's our show for this week. I think it's gonna be the down and dirtiest show ever because, like I said, I'm on vacation and my beer's empty, which is a crime. Honestly, it's a tragedy.
That sounds abnormal to say the least.
Yes, it is. But I don't have Patreon signed in on this computer. Oops. But I would like to thank all the patrons still. And if you are interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There are 6 tiers, I think, to choose from. Pick one that is a paid tier, and you get to come on FAP After Dark. It's our live show. We don't record it. We just kind of do the thing. The next one, Charmer will be going through the evidence packet that was presented to him to justify his suspension at his job. So that'll be a fun one to go ahead and be a part of. Which I think next week would be what we're gunning for. Before I leave to London, but after Milwaukee. No, it'll be before Milwaukee. Yeah, at any rate, I'll post it. But if you want to come and hear that story, that's for the After Dark. And that's also, I think that we should have our playmat. Our playmat's been submitted. It's the samples are being printed, as far as I know. So hopefully we'll have that as well on hand for that show. So that'll be great too. If you need to contact us for any reason whatsoever, you can go to send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. Find us on BlueSky, just search Flesh and Pod. But the best thing to do is just join our Discord. It's free. Don't have to be a member of anything. Don't have to pay us on the Patreon or anything like that. You can just join and then join the immense amount of shit talking that has been happening in that Discord. Papa Mike has been going off today because he found, I think he found his spirit animal and it's a bottle of rum. To the shock of actually nobody. But
isn't he a patron?
Probably.
What about like Salty Sea Cat?
Definitely a patron.
Syndra?
Syndra's a patron. Hammer Bro 82 is a
Lance,
patron.
good thrust.
Oh, 100% a patron. Goat Warrior.
What about don't we have somebody that's like a valued member?
We have a Blaze Storm that is a valued member.
Oh yeah, that's right, Blaze Storm.
We do also have the beginning. We have the Chargers Chamber of Charcoal participants, which Sleeper Jackal, step on down.
Yeah,
you hit it.
I don't even have Patreon pulled up. I'm just doing this based on memory because I care about you, the listener.
I have drank my brain cells to pickle state, so no.
Hey, speaking of pickle stuff, there was some like weird V8 thing at the store today that was pickle flavored, and I'm upset because I meant to go take a picture of it and post it in the Pickle Posse, and I did not. So I apologize. I've let everyone down.
Cheese puffs, like the cheese balls that you get in a can.
Yes,
but they were not cheese; they were dill pickle.
Sophie has them in our bedroom right now. Also, Sophie is addicted to the Pringles dill flavored, like
that
legit.
Tracks.
She has like 4 cans, like in the like nightstand, whatever. So,
man, like I said, what goes on in your bedroom? How do you even have children?
Sometimes you miss.
That's true. Oh, Jesus. It took just that 1 second to get there. And then the neurons went, oh, okay. Charmer, Charger, Chamber, whatever your name is today, where can they find you?
In the pickle aisle.
Yeah, definitely. Jerking your gherkin.
I guess. Sure. Why not?
Just in there gherkin off.
Sure.
You see what I did there? That was a dad joke for you.
So anyway, in the Discord is the best place to find me.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I mean, that's our show for this week. Thank you everybody for listening. Sorry it's a short one, but we will obviously be back with something much longer. Could have phrased that better. Oh well. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.